Retired Earth Marine Garen Hale thought he'd left war behind, but when he stumbled upon 8 baby dragons fighting for their lives against a monster no human could face alone, he realized some battles never truly end, and some heroes are born all over again. Garen Hale thought he'd left war behind when he retired from the Terran Marine Corps. After 30 years of service, more scars than medals, and a heart that had grown weary of battlefield screams, he settled into an outpost cabin on the quiet moon of Vespernine. His days were supposed to be simple: repair old equipment, hunt for supplies, and watch the twin suns rise in silence. No more aliens, no more bloodshed, no more impossible decisions. But fate has never cared about what soldiers want. It happened. On a cold, violet morning fog, low winds dragging frost across the rocks, Garen was on his usual trek when he heard a sound he hadn't expected in this remote wasteland: thin, frantic chirps, and something heavier, guttural, growling with hunger and rage. He moved without thinking, those old instincts roaring awake like an engine coming back online. He found them in a craterate, tiny dragons, each no larger than a house cat, trembling and pressed together. Their scales shimmered like shards of galaxies: sapphire, ember red, obsidian black, molten gold. Their wings were still too small to lift them. They were newborns. But what froze Garen wasn't there. Beauty it was the thing hunting them. A rock beast, 6-legged, spines jutting like daggers. A predator known for wiping out entire colonies. And these babies, they didn't stand a chance. Garen didn't. Have his rifle? He had only an old vibro knife, and the stubborn weight of a man who refused to watch innocence die again. So he stepped between the monster and the babies, cracked his neck and muttered, "All right, big guy. Let's dance." The rock lunged first. Garen dodged, rolled, slashed. Every movement hurt told bones, old wounds, but he fought like the Marine he once was. He wasn't fighting for medals. He wasn't fighting for orders. He was fighting because something in those trembling little creatures reminded him of the cadets he once trained, frightened, unprotected, hoping someone would stand for them. The beast swiped a claw across his armor, tearing through plating and ripping flesh. Garen roared but didn't fall. With one last push, he drove the vibro knife up beneath the rock's jaw. The creature dropped with a heavy thud. Silence. Garen staggered, breathing fire from exhausted lungs. Then he felt something tug his boot. A baby dragon, blue-scaled. Bryta nudged him with its snout. Soon all 8 were surrounding him, chirping, trembling, trusting he should have walked away. Told himself he would take them somewhere safe, and then forget this ever happened. But that's not how things go for men with lonely hearts. Back at his cabin, he built fires, mixed nutrient paste, patched wounds with trembling hands. The dragons, who should have feared him, crawled over his shoulders, curled around his boots, fell asleep in his lap. And when he tried to close his door that night, they all cried until he let them pile into his quarters like a warm, scaly avalanche. Days passed, then weeks. The babies grew fast, wings strengthened, scales hardened. Their minds. They learned to understand Garen's voice, his gestures, his moods. They followed him everywhere. When he fixed generators, they brought tools. When he cooked, they begged for scraps. When he fell asleep in his chair, they curled around him in a protective ring. Garen Hale, retired war hero, once feared across half the galaxy, had become the reluctant father of 8 dragonlings. But peace never stays. One night, it's a sky lit with descending fire. Poachers. The worst kind. Legal off-world hunters. Known for capturing infant star dragons and selling them in black markets. Garen had seen their kind before. His hand clenched his old Marine rifle. He wasn't losing his kids. The raiders attacked with stun nets and plasma traps. Garen answered with military precisions. Silent, efficient, unstoppable. But there were too many. One net fired, striking the smallest dragon. Ember, she shrieked a sound that ripped Garen's heart in half. He charged through laser fire, grabbed the net, tore it apart with bleeding hands. Then he stood between his dragons and the raiders. Shoulders squared like the last line of defense of an entire world. But this time, he was not alone. The dragons, once helpless, now felt their father's fear and fury. They spread their wings. Every scale glowed bright with bioluminescent energy, and for the first time, they breathed 8 streams of elemental. Fire blue, red, white, gold shot upward like the birth of stars. The raiders fled, their ship peeled away, engines screaming. Garen stood among the dragons, breathless, covered in dust and blood, staring in awe. "You saved me," he whispered. They chirped proudly. News traveled fast. Dragons were thought nearly extinct. But here were 8 survivors, and a human who had protected them with his life. Human authorities arrived expecting chaos. Instead, they found a man sitting on a rock, carving names into metal tags, one for each dragon, 8 loyal, watchful creatures sitting beside him, like soldiers waiting for orders. A general asked Hale, "What is this?" Garan smiled, for the first time in years. "Sir, these are my kids." The dragons nuzzled him in agreement. In time, they would grow to be the most powerful allies humanity ever knew. In time, Garen would train them not just to survive, but to defend worlds. In time, people across the galaxy would tell stories of the retired human who adopted dragons and turned them into guardians. But for now, he was just a man sitting between 8 warm bodies, listening to them purr under Vespernine's twin sons. And for the first time since he left the Marines, Garen Hell felt like he had a purpose again. Everything had changed, and he wouldn't trade it for the universe.